with broad stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the ragged rift weapons bursting in air, it rode through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Let us pray. Patriot dreams rise from the breaking of this soil today, Lord. Guide the artisans and builders as they give form and function to these dreams. Let this memorial stand as testimony to the women who have served on active duty when the world was at war, those who shouldered the demands of quieter times, to all women who have protected and defended this nation. Let it serve to enhearten women who faithfully serve in our military today. Grant that these bricks and stones and mortar become a beacon of everlasting resolve to our daughters, that we women love our country and we have power, skill, and resources to serve, to fight, and to win what battles may come our way. In keeping with the words of the biblical warrior Judge Deborah, may women in military service for America arise, arise and go forth. Amen.
Brigadier General Wilma L. Vaught, United States Air Force retired and President of the Women in Military Service for America Memorial Foundation.
Be seated, everyone, and welcome. And the first thing I want to assure you is it will not rain. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Women in Military Service Memorial Foundation, welcome to this historic, groundbreaking, and great day for everyone who has supported this memorial. This is the largest gathering of military women and women veterans whose service spans the time from World War I through today that there has ever been. Women are here from every state. Guam, Puerto Rico, and Europe, and a few may have slipped in that I'm not sure of. In these next few minutes, you're going to hear from a few of our supporters and from some of the women who helped make history. And I want to give a special thanks to each of you who have come to be with us for this special day. Now, on with the program.
Assistant Secretary of the Interior, Mr. George Frampton.
General Vaught, veterans, distinguished guests, on behalf of Secretary of the Interior Bruce Babbitt, I'm honored to be here today. From where I stand, much of what one can see is a part of the national park system. Not only the mall and the monumental core of Washington, the riverbanks, but the parkway behind you and the Lee Mansion in front of you. The monuments and memorials that have been entrusted to the Park Service evoke our nation's history and its heroes, our hopes and our dreams, the nation's most fundamental values, and they commemorate those who have given their lives to defend those values. Millions come here every year to learn and to remember. We know the power of memorials to inspire and to heal. The role of women in the military has been an unsung melody in our history. So it is fitting, I think, that this new memorial to the nearly 2 million women who gave and continue to give military service for America should rise here at the gateway to our national cemetery, where the supreme sacrifice is honored. A blend of the old and the new, this 1930s hemicycle, which you see in front of you, will become a vital place for people to visit with a new vista overlooking our nation's capital. Congratulations to you, General Vaught, and the many donors who have brought this memorial this far. We look forward to the day when the Women in the Military Service for America Memorial will take its rightful place among the other important monuments and memorials in the nation's capital. Thank you.
Senator Frank Bukowski from the state of Alaska.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, distinguished veterans of our country. You know, as I was sitting up here looking through the brochure describing this morning's events, I looked and saw that President and Mrs. Clinton were coming, that General Shalikashvili, I see so many members of the House and Senate all joining with us, and I thought, gosh, what a nice thing for them to all do. Then I realized they were just following General Vaught's orders. Anybody that doesn't think that women can handle combat has never gotten between Wilma Vaught and this memorial. She is a one-of-a-kind, and everybody here, let's give Wilma a big round of applause, huh? Stand up and give Wilma what she deserves. You know, of all the memories that coming out to this cemetery has for me, and of the far too many times I've had to make this trip, this is really the first time that I've made it with a smile on my face, looking forward to what is occurring here. Each and every one of you, particularly the women who have served our country so well for so many years without any acknowledgement, should take great pride in what you have given your country, should take great pride in what so many women before you have given this country. Going back to the Revolutionary War, every time there was conflict, every time our country needed assistance, the women of this country responded for one reason: because of the love they have for the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an important memorial. It's important to recognize and honor those that love this country, that give their life for this country, whether it be in death or whether it be in their life's work. To each and every one of you that have given so much, this memorial is your government's way of saying thank you. Congratulations.
The Secretary of the Army, Togo West.
In 1778, Molly Hayes, later to be known as Molly Pitcher, accompanied her husband's unit into the field as they prosecuted the Revolutionary War. On a day in June of that year, she came upon her husband's gun emplacement. The gun disabled, her husband wounded, the soldiers around it wounded. She went right to work, both loading and firing the weapon to great effect until she was relieved. Her actions on the field of battle that day were, of course, extraordinary. Her presence there during that war was not unusual, nor was it unusual later, during the Civil War, when a number of women, as civilians, supported soldiers in the field. Clara Barton, who both obtained supplies and medicine and provided them at her own initiative and often at her own expense to Union soldiers, who of course founded the Red Cross and established the first national cemetery here on these hallowed grounds. And today, the service of women in uniform is not unusual, although it continues to be in the highest traditions of the armed forces. The history of women's service to America since then has been a dual story. Similar to that of their male counterparts, they fought together in the same wars. They sacrificed together, they defended the same nation, but unique, because they served both with and without official status. They served both with and without equal pay and benefits, and they served far too long without full recognition of all they had contributed to their nation. That story, the story of the service of women in uniform to America, cannot be read between the lines of the monuments and memorials that already are here in the nation's capital. This memorial, in names and stories of over 2 million, will make that story clear. For decades now, it has been the duty, the responsibility of secretaries of the Army to be custodians of Arlington National Cemetery. On behalf of those who will succeed me, on behalf of the superintendent and deputy superintendent of the cemetery, on behalf of their staffs, the soldiers of the Old Guard, and all who have a hand in the activities, the operations, the ceremonies of this hallowed place, I commit us all to remember the theme that underscores this cemetery and this memorial, that the noblest of endeavors of men and women is service to others, service to their country, in uniform, as civilians, for a brief period or for a lifetime. And that the service of those who are memorialized here and whose names will be added to this list is in the noblest tradition of all. Congratulations and thank you.
The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General John Shalikashvili.
If you look around you, as far as your eyes can see, there are monuments. Washington is a city of monuments. To your rear, they stretch majestically up towards the sky and line the banks of the Potomac. On the quiet hills behind me, there are row upon row of neatly ordered monuments. And underneath each one, there rests a patriot. Each of these monuments has its purpose, whether to remember the most famous Americans who served this nation, or to remember those whose labors and sacrifices, while less well known, are still forever appreciated. In just a few minutes, we will observe the groundbreaking for a new monument. And during this groundbreaking, there will be two images in my mind's eye. The first will be the face of Laura Piper, the Air Force lieutenant who, on April 13th of last year, died beside 25 others in a tragic accident in northern Iraq. And the second will be the face of Karen Hultgren, the Navy lieutenant who gave her life last October while attempting to land her jet on an aircraft carrier in the Pacific Ocean. The life of this new memorial, this new monument, will not lie in its stone and granite and glass, as beautifully arrayed as those will be. It will be instead in the stories and in the faces of the proud women in this monument's registry. And here, forevermore, when Americans come to this spot, they will see courage and dedication and sacrifice. They will find in the memories of these women inspiration in their selfless service to our nation and to freedom. As architecture critic Ben Forgey wrote, "This monument is a perfect gesture in a proper place at a fitting moment, and I could not be prouder to be a part in its beginning." And so, thank you, General Vaught, for giving us this grand beginning. Thank you very much.
The Secretary of Defense, Dr. William Perry.
The legendary performer Pearl Bailey once said, "You never find yourself until you face the truth." The same is true with nations. And one way nations face the truth is to set their historical records straight and give credit where credit is due. That's what today's groundbreaking is all about. This memorial will speak to the thousands of Americans who come to the nation's capital every year. It will say that when the call came to protect our nation's freedom, women answered. That when the need arose for great courage and sacrifice, women met that need. And that when the roles of America's heroes are posted, America's women will be listed. It is fitting that we set this record straight with a groundbreaking, because the women we celebrate are themselves groundbreakers. The ground they broke was hard soil indeed, but with great heart and true grit, they plowed right through the prejudice and presumption, cutting a path for their daughters and granddaughters to serve their country in uniform. Their daughters and granddaughters, in turn, will break their own new ground. Because for the past 2 years, we have been removing barriers, and women are flying, sailing, and marching right through. These new policies are both the right thing to do and the smart thing to do. They're right because gender must not be a barrier to full service in America's defense. Women have a rich history of performance in difficult and dangerous military environments, overcoming unique obstacles to serve. And these policies are also smart because new openings for women in the military, simply put, give us a better force. We are counting on women to seize the new opportunities to serve our country and to excel in uniform. This memorial is a tribute, then, not only to the women who have served our country for more than 200 years, but to the women who are serving and will serve. So I also want to applaud General Wilma Vaught. Wilma, we thank you for daring to dream of this memorial, and to the supporters of the foundation for making this dream come true. I also want to thank the members of Congress who have supported this endeavor and who have supported our efforts to break down the barriers to women in the military. But most of all, I want to thank you groundbreaking women, the women who broke the ground for military service to America. Thank you.
Marylou Keener, General Counsel of the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Distinguished leaders of our nation, honored guests, members of the armed services, fellow veterans, especially my sister veterans, ladies and gentlemen. This is such an honor for me to be here on this special day, representing Secretary Brown and the Department of Veterans Affairs. In preparing for today's ceremony, I found myself looking through some old boxes of memorabilia from my service days. There, among some of those old photographs, ribbons, and other remembrances, was an old, worn bumper sticker that said, "Women are veterans too." This simple but very meaningful statement is the message of this memorial. It will tell everyone who visits here and the entire world of the service of America's women in uniform. In the course of this country's history, over 1 million American women have answered their country's call. Their history is one of service, commitment, dedication, and courage, of sacrifices that have largely gone unrecognized. These sacrifices helped keep us all free. Their service brought credit to all of us. All of these women, like me and like many of you, are veterans too. But let's think about those words for a minute. Women are veterans too. Most of us would think initially that they tend to emphasize the role of women in military service. However, there may be another more subtle message, the message that reminds us women are veterans too. As I look out into this audience, I see that we are women of different generations and women of different wars. But I also see and I can feel that common bond that we share of service in the armed forces. And that experience that we share can be of very great value, not only in our own lives, but to the well-being of our nation. Most veterans that I know take a special interest in the affairs of our nation. Most of those veterans are members of one or more service organizations fighting to advance the cause of their fellow veterans. Most veterans know the benefits they have earned in service to our nation and truly take advantage of them. But I'm here to tell you that I see too few women veterans when I go to service organization meetings. I see too few women taking advantage of what the VA offers to those of us who have served our country. We know, of course, that you women veterans are out there. We know that the women veterans who played 100 important roles in the military have come home to fill 101 different kinds of jobs in our society. Most of you re-entered the mainstream of your communities in the same quiet, effective way that you served. These silent warriors of yesterday are neighbors, friends, wives, and mothers today. But why aren't we more collectively visible as women veterans? Until recently, when the country began to accept and take responsibility for women as veterans, VA programs were not well geared to accommodate us. Many VA facilities were not prepared to meet women's health needs. But I'm also here to tell you that there have been many new and exciting changes regarding women's programs at the VA. These changes are perhaps best summarized in the words of a reporter who recently covered the opening of one of our comprehensive women's health centers in Tampa, Florida, and she wrote in her article, "This is not your father's VA." We believe that VA is finally attempting to do our part. We're working hard to make things better for you, but now we need your help. We at the VA want you to remember that women are veterans too. And for those of you out there that are still on active duty, you know, being a veteran is sort of like death and taxes. We can assure you that one day you will all be veterans too. Women who have served should see themselves as veterans. Be proud of your service. Being a veteran should be a part of who you are. Women who have served should take advantage of the veterans' benefits and services that you have earned. And women who have served must stand up for the rights of their fellow veterans, both female and male. That's why this memorial is so very important. It will say in a direct and very powerful way, women served with distinction. And it will also remind all who see it that women have earned the same honor and respect this nation owes to every veteran, irrespective of gender. That is the message and the meaning of this memorial for we women veterans. God bless us one and all, and God bless the United States.
Please remain seated for our musical interlude. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the First Lady.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Vaught.
We've been fortunate indeed to have someone as the Honorary Chair of the Foundation who has done so much more than just lend her name to the cause. She's joined with us to help in meaningful ways. She's done this because she believes in the memorial and because she strongly supports our military women and veterans, and I might add, our military men and our male veterans too. It's my honor and privilege to present the Honorary Chair of the Foundation, First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled and delighted to be with all of you on this historic occasion. As the Honorary Chair of the Foundation, I would like to convey my personal and special thanks to General Vaught and to the many, many active duty and retired men and women in our armed services who never wavered in their dream of a memorial for women in the military. I also want to thank Secretary Perry, General Shalikashvili, all of the members of Congress, and others who have lent their energy and support. I had the privilege this morning of hosting some of the people who have led the fundraising efforts at a reception at the White House, and I want to thank those people from the private sector who as well have joined in these efforts. A year ago, I had the great pleasure of attending the groundbreaking luncheon for this memorial, and I was privileged to meet a group of extraordinary women veterans who had served in World Wars I and II. They were women who had joined the ranks of our armed services at a time when their sex was an obstacle to promotion and advancement and to fulfilling the potential they saw for themselves in the military. Yet these brave and strong women persevered out of a sense of duty and faith in our country. Like women before and after them, they served with honor and distinction. They broke new ground. They upheld a proud tradition of women defending our nation that runs through the course of American history. In the weeks since then, and particularly in the weeks leading up to this ceremony, I have heard from even more women veterans. I have heard also from daughters and granddaughters. I've heard from sons and grandsons who are only now learning the full story of their mothers' or grandmothers' acts of sacrifice and heroism many years ago. What has become clear to me and why I believe so fervently in the purpose of this memorial is that with many of our women veterans, as with many of our men veterans, the experiences that they encounter during their service, however transforming to their lives, were often stored away like the clothes they wore in an attic after they left the service. I want to share with you just one story from one daughter who wrote me about her mother, and I believe her mother is here with us today, Margaret Loring Zaper, who traveled from Arizona to be with us. Mrs. Zaper joined the WACs in 1943 and was part of the European theater. But it was only recently that her daughter, Pat, a volunteer helping with this memorial project, learned the extent of her mother's military experiences by reading the letters and postcards that had been stored in a hall closet. Pat ended a loving tribute to her mother by saying, She's probably typical of thousands of women of that era who served in the military or in factories, had life-changing experiences, then came home and got on with the wife and mother lives they were expected to lead. But when my father died young, leaving Mom with 4 children aged 10 and under, I suspect her military experiences helped her survive. She had learned how to be tough, resourceful, independent, and she kept our family together that way. Now I understand a bit better what came before in her life, why she always said she'd traveled enough for one lifetime, and how she managed the sheer grit it took to raise 4 kids alone. For thousands of women, and for thousands of their daughters and sons, granddaughters and grandsons, the memorial being built will help unearth memories, will help us finally honor the sacrifice to duty and country that so many women have given over our history. It will help us all gain a greater appreciation and understanding of women whose contributions too often have gone unnoticed. I am very honored and grateful to play even a very small role in bringing to our historical attention and really making it possible for the children in the future to join us in recognizing the contributions that so many of you have made and so many women currently serving are making and will continue to make as we guarantee that our country remains the strongest in the world. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back General Vaught.
As we planned this memorial, we wanted it to be something more than just a statue or some granite and stone. We believed it needed to tell the story of women's service to the nation, a service that started with the American Revolution. The memorial we'll be building will tell that story and tell it in many ways, from its arc of glass tablets with quotations from women who served to the water fountain in the great niche directly behind me, where the sound of water will symbolize their voices. The education center to be built behind this wall just behind me will contain their voices in film, exhibits, the computer register, where their words will tell of their memorable experiences and they'll be recorded forever. And where in the Hall of Honor, where we will list the names of those killed in action, killed in the line of duty, our prisoners of war, and 2 of our 90 prisoners of war are here with us today, and the women of special accomplishment. We have a unique and wonderful opportunity today to hear the voices of 6 women who each played an important, or are playing an important role in history. Their voices will represent all of us who have served. Here on the dais, we have 2 women from World War I. One, sitting here at the end in a white hat, is Helene Coxhead from Fairfax, Virginia, who's thrilled that now with this memorial, she and all her shipmates will not be forgotten. And she's carried her ID tag that she got in World War I with her every place she's gone for 76 years. We now start with the voice of a woman from World War I who traveled from New York to be with us today.
Yeoman First Class Anne Freeman, World War I veteran.
President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton and distinguished guests, First, I want to thank Ann Landers because I found out about the memorial when my daughter in California read the Memorial Day column and immediately called me. In 1918, my high school graduation gift from my father, a Spanish-American war veteran, was a trip to Washington, D.C. I was 17 years old. The most exciting part of my visit was seeing some women in uniform. I said, "Oh, that's for me." Soon as I returned to New York, I went straight to the Navy recruiting office and signed up. My entry was slightly delayed when I became ill, so it was not until November 7, 1918, that I proudly took the oath of enlistment to serve for the duration, plus 6 months. 4 days later came the armistice. I was signed to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where I worked in the Ordnance Depot. We worked from 8 to 5, 6 days a week. I was promoted to yeoman first class shortly after I went in. My pay was $30 a month, and because I lived at home, I was paid an additional $30 subsistence pay. I don't remember exactly what we did, but we typed and typed and typed and made 6 copies of everything. June 20th, 1919, I was discharged and spent 4 days in the reserves. I would have liked very much to have remained in the Navy, but that was not possible for women at that time. My husband, however, not only served in World War I, but World War II and the Korean War as well. He retired from the Army Reserve as a captain. Shortly after the end of the war, I became a member of the second post organized of the American Legion. It was the first post organized in the United States. In 1945, I became the commander of my Legion post, and it was a proud moment. I have been so pleased to see the opportunities grow for women to serve their country in the military service. When I served, women didn't even have the right to vote. I'm glad all the World War I Navy women yeomen will be remembered in this memorial. Thank you.
Colonel Mary Halloran, veteran and former director of the Women's Army Corps, World War II.
Just a minute, Mary. Just a minute. Is this for me? This is for you. Away you go. There she is.
When I applied for the Army, the recruiter asked me what I thought the Army could do with anybody my size. Well, you see what they've done. I usually have a couple of telephone directories, but this time they provided a real box. President and Mrs. Clinton and friends, 50 years ago, the women who served in World War II wrote the first chapter in the history of women in the military. More than 200,000 women served in that war, at home and overseas. They served in Europe, in North Africa, and the Far East. They island hopped in the Pacific, strafed by Japanese planes. They served in England under the buzz bombs, the V-1s and V-2s. The quality of their work is on record in the number of unit citations, Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, and Legions of Merit that were awarded them. When the war ended, the military leaders of all the armed services were unanimous in their conclusion: women should be a permanent part of the military, regular and reserve. The result was the Women's Armed Services Act of 1948, the foundation on which the women who followed have opened new avenues of challenge and set new records of achievement. All these women have truly earned their place on the rolls of the Women's Memorial.
Former Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, veteran of World War II and Korea, retired Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes.
President and Mrs. Clinton, honored guests, fellow veterans, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to pay tribute to military nurses. Military nurses have given care to the sick and wounded in the American Revolutionary, Civil, and Spanish-American Wars, and in World War I, when they served on ships and on the fields in Europe. During World War II, approximately 70,000 military nurses served wherever the American soldier, sailor, Marine, or airmen could be found. More than 1,600 were decorated for meritorious service and bravery under fire. 83 were prisoners of war of the Japanese, 1 of the Germans. And over 200 nurses made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Since that time, thousands and thousands of nurses have served in time of peace, in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, and recently in the Desert Storm and missions such as Somalia. Hundreds were highly decorated for their service, and the names of the 8 nurses who lost their lives in Vietnam are engraved on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The story of Lieutenant Frances Slanger, an Army nurse during World War II, illustrates the gratitude of patients for the compassion and selfless care given to them. In 1944, Lieutenant Slanger, in her tent in Belgium, far from her home in Roxbury, Massachusetts, was one of several Army nurses who sent a letter to the Stars and Stripes in response to a letter from a grateful patient. It said in part, "Sure, we rough it, but compared to the way you men are taking it, we can't complain, nor do we feel that bouquets are due us. It is to you we doff our helmets." Over 100 soldiers signed the following reply, which was published in the next issue. To all Army nurses overseas, we We are here because we have to be. You are here because you felt you were needed. So whenever an injured man opens his eyes and to see one of you concerned over his welfare, he can't help but be overcome by the very thought that you are doing it because you want to. You endure whatever hardships you must to be where you can do the most good. 17 days later, Lieutenant Slanger died from wounds caused by the shelling of her tented hospital area. Today, former patients still inquire about that special nurse who gave them care in a hospital on the ship, or in a plane, the one that they remembered through the years. Soon, they will be able to come to the memorial on this site, find her name in the registry, and perhaps see her photo. And for a moment, they will recall her smile, the tender touch of her hands, her soothing voice of encouragement, or her loud cry of, "Hang in there, you're going to make it." And once again, they will be able to say, "Thank you." God bless each Army, Navy, and Air Force nurse who has served her country. Those nurses on active duty who are upholding the legacy that we have trusted to them. And to those nurses in the reserve forces who stand ready to serve whenever and wherever needed. Thank you.
Sixteenth Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, retired Brigadier General Hazel Johnson Brown.
Mr. President, Mrs. Clinton, friends, neighbors, fellow veterans, it is with a great sense of honor and humility that I have accepted this opportunity to recognize minority women in uniform. In our audience today is Mrs. Charity Adams Early, one of the pioneers and recognized leaders of minority women during World War II. She commanded a postal battalion and led the first Black unit of WACs overseas. During this period, her work and contributions to the military services culminated in her being promoted to Lieutenant Colonel, the highest rank for minority nurses at that time. June 16, 1995 will be remembered because Brigadier General Marcellite Harris, U.S. Air Force, became the first African-American woman to attain the rank of Major General. General Harris is on TDY and could not be with us today. However, we celebrate her achievements and look to her leadership into the 21st century. These two women are representative of minority women who have served the nation at all ranks, from private to general officer. They represent courage, stamina, strength of character, because they have succeeded and continue to succeed using adversity and roadblocks as stepping stones to excellence. They accepted the challenge of leadership and have created a new future for minority nurses and other women in the armed forces. We are called, and we should always look to these women because they have given us what should be our future. In the past, women, particularly minority women, have always responded when there was a crisis or a need. We acknowledge all minority women in uniform, both present in this audience and not present. You are the strength of our success. You represent the patchwork quilt of diversity, which is America: race, creed, color, and ethnicity. This memorial salutes the vision, strength, dedication, and leadership of women in uniform. It will serve as a source of great pride to all and should be a stimulus to all to emulate the leadership of minority women in uniform, past, present, and future. In closing, and for your reflection, from a poem entitled Humanity by Maud Smith. You are me, and I am you. We are bits of a grand design, the universal plan divine. Intermingled is each soul, greater than its any part. We are its warm and pulsing heart.
Representing active duty enlisted women, Senior Chief Petty Officer Sandra OToole.
President Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, distinguished guests, it's truly an honor to represent the enlisted women of the armed forces. As we break ground for this memorial, each woman can feel extremely proud. Veterans, I want you to know that those of us serving today say thank you for your many achievements. You can be confident that the professionalism you displayed while you were serving your country continues with the servicewomen of today. We realize your job serving our nation was just as trying, if not more so than ours is today. Great strides have been achieved by women in each of the services for more than 200 years, but each of us know that these strides would not have been possible without the perseverance of those who preceded us. The servicewoman of today continues to reach new heights and accomplish great tasks because of the struggles, sacrifices, and successes of the generations of women who have served in the armed forces. Just as the Women's Armed Service Integration Act of 1948 gave women a permanent place in the armed forces, this memorial will ensure a permanent place in history for all servicewomen. Veterans, your service came with bare recognition, and it deserved quite the opposite. Consider this memorial a small payment of a grateful nation's indebtedness to you, one of which can never be totally repaid. This memorial will reflect the achievements of the nearly 2 million women who have served from the Revolutionary War through Operation Desert Storm. When future generations visit this site, they will have the opportunity to learn about the woman's role in the armed forces and how it's changed through time. Servicewomen will receive the recognition they deserve for the many valuable contributions they have made to our great country. This memorial will become the living history book of women in the armed forces, past, present, and future. Thank you.
The highest-ranking woman on active duty, representing active duty officers, Major General Carol Mutter.
President, Mrs. Clinton, and distinguished guests, it's truly an honor for me to be here today representing active duty women officers, the vast majority of whom, like me, come from ordinary backgrounds and have been given the opportunity to do some very extraordinary things by serving in our military. In my case, it all started on a small farm in Colorado. I had 42 in my graduating class from high school, and I went to college to be a teacher. Instead, I've been privileged to serve my country as a Marine for the last 28 years. Assignments have taken me to dozens of countries around the world and provided me with opportunities where I felt I could truly make a difference, make a contribution, do something that mattered for my country. It's been my honor to be the first woman flag officer That one was just a little too loud, I thought. It's been my honor to be the first woman flag officer to command an operationally deployable unit. I'm the first woman to be promoted to Major General in the Marine Corps and currently the senior woman on active duty in the military. As you all know, opportunities for women in the military have expanded significantly in the last few years. Women occupy key positions in the Department of Defense. The combat exclusion law has been repealed, opening thousands of new assignments for women, and many of those aboard ships and in airplanes. Our opportunities for service continue to grow, and we're very grateful to all who have supported the building of this memorial. And now it is truly a great honor to introduce and present our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you, General Mutter. Thank you to all the fine active duty and veteran women service people who have just spoken. I can't even talk, I'm so excited. I tell you, when our wonderful World War I veteran got through talking, I thought there's no point in my saying a word. It has all been said. I thank all the members of our military, beginning with the Secretary of Defense, the Service Secretaries, General Shalikashvili, the Joint Chiefs, those who preceded them. I see General Powell and others here for their support of this endeavor. I thank the members of Congress who are here. General Vaught, I thank you for your determination. I don't believe that anyone in the United States could have said no to you on any important matter. I know I couldn't. And I congratulate you on this triumph of your vision and will. To all the remarkable service women who surround me here, out in the audience and on the podium, let me say to all of you, thank you for your service to America. We are all proud to be here to break ground on a memorial that will recognize a contribution that you have made far beyond the call of duty. Women have been in our service, as has been said, since George Washington's troops fought for independence, clothing and feeding our troops and binding their wounds. They were in the struggle to preserve the Union as cooks and tailors, couriers and scouts, even as spies and saboteurs. Some were so determined to fight for what they believed that they masqueraded as men and took up arms. Women were there during the 2 world wars, and slowly our military establishment that for decades had sought to limit women's roles brought them in to serve as WACs and WAVES, SPARs and WASPs, and women Marines. In our nation's shipyards and factories, women helped to build democracy's arsenals. From the beaches of Normandy to the Pacific Islands, they endured bombs, torpedoes, disease, deprivation to support our fighting forces. Despite this history of bravery and accomplishment, for very much too long, women were treated as second-class soldiers. They could give their lives for liberty, but they couldn't give orders to men. They could heal the wounded and hold the dying, but they could not dream of holding the highest ranks. They could take on the toughest assignments, but they could not take up arms. Still, they volunteered, fighting for freedom all around the world, but also fighting for the right to serve to the fullest of their potential. And from conflict to conflict, from Korea to Vietnam to the Persian Gulf, slowly women have overcome the barriers to their full service to America. The past few decades have witnessed a remarkable series of firsts. The first woman company commander, the first female service academy graduate, the first woman skipper, the first female fighter pilot. The first that are here with us today. 25 years ago, this month, Anna Mae Hayes became the first woman promoted to general. Hazel Johnson Brown was the first minority woman to reach that rank. And 2 years ago, it was my honor to nominate the Secretary of the Air Force, Sheila Widnall, to become the first woman to head one of our service branches. I am honored to be with all of them today. But just as important as these first are those who have followed them, proving that they were not an accident or an aberration. For women today are test pilots and drill sergeants, squadron commanders and admirals, academy instructors and service recruiters. I'm very proud of the fact that during our administration, almost 260,000 new positions in the military have been open to women who wish to serve. And I might say that this is a tribute not only to the women in the service, but to the men in leadership positions who had the wisdom and the understanding and the ability to proceed with this remarkable transformation and strengthening of our military in a climate of tolerance and teamwork and respect. I know of no other institution in our society which could have accomplished so much in such an incredibly efficient and humane and professional way. And so we should be proud of all who played a role in that. And let me say, before I go further, our nation, as you know, is involved now in a great debate over the subject of affirmative action. Before people rush to judgment, I would like to remind all Americans that the United States military is the strongest in the world because it has found a way to make the most of the talents of every American without regard to gender or race. And as a nation, we must continue to search for ways to make the most of the talents of every American without regard to gender or race. There are so many individual stories, the stories that this memorial will tell, but in their detail and drama, they help us understand more of what has occurred than the speeches we can give. Some of these women are here today, and I would like to ask them to stand. Women like June Wandry Mann, who volunteered for the Army Nurse Corps in the Second World War, who served 2.5 years overseas from primitive field hospitals in Tunisia and Italy to a center for concentration camp survivors outside of Munich. In her courage and caring, Lieutenant Wandry represents the best of America. Would you please stand? Thank you. And I might add, you still look terrific in your uniform. Women like Charity Adams Early, who was mentioned earlier, the Women Army Corps' first African-American officer. Along with thousands of other African-American veterans, both men and women, she helped our nation act on a truth too long denied, that if people of different races, could serve as brothers and sisters abroad, surely they could learn to live together as neighbors at home. Colonel, would you please stand? And I might add, she gives a resounding speech. Women like U.S. Air Force Captain Teresa Allen Stith of the 60th Air Mobility Wing from Travis Air Force Base in California, who was among our first soldiers to set down in Haiti last year and who for 3 months helped planes and troops and cargo move in and out of the Port-au-Prince airport. Because she and the rest of our troops did their job so well, the people of Haiti now remarkably have a second chance at democracy. And this Sunday, they'll be going to the polls to exercise their newfound rights for the first time in 5 years. And this time, they won't be stolen from them, thanks to people like you, Captain. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Women like Barbara Allen Rainey, the mother of 2 daughters, the Navy's first female aviator, tragically the victim of a training crash. Her story reminds us that even in peacetime, those who wear the uniform face danger every day. Now she rests just behind me in the quiet of these sacred grounds. This memorial will tell the stories of these women and hundreds of thousands more. It makes a long overdue down payment on a debt that we will never fully repay, a debt we owe to generations of American women in uniform who gave and continue to give so much to our country, and a debt we owe yet to future generations of women who will, in the future, dedicate their own lives to the defense of our freedom. May this memorial say to each and every one of them, we cherish your devotion, we admire your courage, we thank you for your service. God bless you, and God bless America.
Mr. President, Mrs. Clinton, it's time to turn the dirt. Are you ready? Let's go.
On this historic day, as we break the earth for the Women's Memorial with 3 groups of groundbreakers, we symbolically salute all American military women, past, present, and future.
Mr. President, let's dig. We're going to conclude our program now with the singing of God Bless America. And as we do that, I want us to take just a moment to remember those who are not with us. And when I think of them, I think of one young lady who was killed in Desert Storm just after the cessation of hostilities in a minefield explosion, named Cindy Bowden from Connecticut. And in her last letter home, she wrote, "Dear Mom and Dad, I hope you never have to open this letter because it means something has happened to me. I want you to know that I love both of you very much. Do not only mourn for me, mourn for all of us who have given our lives for freedom." That's why I served for 28 years. That's why all of you out here served. It was for freedom. And let's think of all of those who gave their lives as we join in singing, God Bless America. Thank you.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for the land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
and I can feel that common bond that we share of service in the armed forces. And that experience that we, I know, take a special interest in the affairs of our nation. Most of those veterans are members of one or more service organizations fighting to advance the cause of their fellow veterans. Most veterans know the benefits they have earned in service to our nation and offers to those of us who have served our country. We know, of course, that you women veterans are out there. We warriors of yesterday, our neighbors, friends, wives, and mothers today. But why aren't we more collectively visible as women veterans? Accept and take responsibility for women as veterans. VA programs were not well geared to accommodate us. Many VA facilities were not prepared to meet women's health needs. But I'm also here to tell you that there have been many reporters who recently covered the opening of one of our comprehensive women's health centers in Tampa, Florida, and she wrote in her article, "This is not your father's VA." We believe that VA is finally you to remember that women are veterans too. And for those of you out there that are still on active duty, you know, being a veteran is sort of like death in taxes. Women who have served should take advantage of the veterans' benefits and services that you have earned. And women who have served must stand up for the rights of their fellow veterans, both female and male. That's why this memorial is so very important. It will say in a direct and very States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the First Lady.
We've been fortunate indeed to have someone as the Honorary Chair of the Foundation, believes in the memorial, and because she strongly supports our military women and veterans, and I might add, our military men and our male veterans too. It's my honor and privilege to present the Honorary Chair of the Foundation, First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thanks, and to the many, many active duty and retired men and women in our armed services who never wavered in their dream of a memorial possible for the children in the future to join us in recognizing the contributions that so many of you have made and so many women currently serving are making and will continue to make as we guarantee that our country remains the strongest in the world. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back General Vaught.
Are here with us today, and the women of special accomplishment. We have a unique and wonderful opportunity today to hear the voices of 6 women who each played an important, or are playing an important role in history. Their voices will represent all of us who have served. Here on the dais, we have 2 women from World War I. One, sitting here at the end in a white hat, is Helene Coxhead, that now with this memorial, she and all her shipmates will not be forgotten. And she's carried her ID tag that she got in World War I with her every place she's gone for 76 years. We now start with the voice of a woman from World War I who traveled from New York to be with us today.
Yeoman First Class Anne Freeman, World War I veteran.
Pattern was the trip to Washington, D.C. I was 17 years old. The most exciting part of my visit was to see the opportunities grow.
Ago, the women who served in World War II wrote the first chapter in the history of women in the military. More than 200,000 women served in that war, at home and overseas. They served in Europe, in North Africa. The quality of their work is on record in the number of unit citations, Purple Hearts. Women should be a permanent part of the military, regular and reserve. The result was the Women's Armed Services Act of...
Former Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, veteran of World War II and Korea, retired Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes.
1944, Lieutenant Slanger, in her tent in Belgium, far from her home in Roxbury, Massachusetts, was one of several Army nurses who sent a letter to the Stars and Stripes in response to a letter from a grateful patient. It said in part, "Sure, we rough it, but compared to the way..."
16th Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, retired Brigadier General Hazel Johnson Brown.
To attain the rank of Major General. General Harris is on TDY and could not be with us today. However, we celebrate her achievements and look to her leadership into the 21st century.
We realize your job serving our nation was just as trying, if not more so than ours is today. Great strides have been achieved by women in each of the services for more than 200 years, but each of us know that these strides would not have been possible without the perseverance of those who preceded us. The servicewoman of today continues to reach new heights and accomplish great tasks because of the struggles, sacrifices, and successes of the generations of women who have served in the armed forces.
For the last 28 years. Assignments have taken me to dozens of countries around the world and provided me with opportunities where I felt I could truly make a difference, make a contribution, do something that mattered for my country. It's been my honor to be the William Jefferson Clinton.
Much. Thank you, General Mutter. Fought for independence, clothing and feeding our troops and binding their wounds. They were in the struggle to preserve the Union as cooks and tailors, couriers and scouts, and slowly our military establishment that for decades had sought to limit women's roles brought them in to serve as whacks and waves, spars and wasps, and women marine.
On this historic day, as